The message arrived on Earth during a regular Tuesday morning, and within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the same incredible announcement. Humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Concordance Exchange Program for 3 years. Since first contact with the wider galaxy, humans had waited for this moment, and now 5 students would become the first of their species to attend the Celestial Scholarium, the most prestigious educational institution in known space. The selection process had been intense and thousands of Earth's brightest young minds had applied, but only 5 were chosen: Maya Chen, a biology enthusiast from San Francisco; Tyler Washington, an engineering prodigy from Chicago; Jackson Park, a physics student from Seoul; Priya Lakshmi, a mathematics genius from Mumbai; and Sarah Chen, Maya's older cousin and a xenolinguistics expert from Toronto at the designated spaceport families, gathered to say their goodbyes, and the air buzzed with excitement and nervousness. Maya hugged her parents one final time and adjusted the carrying case in her arms where her orange tabby cat. Mercury dozed peacefully. "You remember everything I told you about taking care of him?" Maya asked her mother. For the 10th time, her mother smiled and squeezed her hand, but before she could answer, Maya's father interrupted with a laugh. "Honey, I think she means taking Mercury with her." Maya nodded as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. "Of course I am. I can't leave him for a whole year, and he's my emotional support animal." 3 terminals down, Tyler Washington was having a similar conversation with his family while his golden retriever, Zeus, sat obediently at his feet, with tail wagging the form said I could bring necessary items. Tyler explained to his skeptical brother while Zeus licked his hand and panted happily, "I don't think they meant a dog, man. They didn't say I couldn't." "Bring a dog," Tyler countered, with the confident logic of someone who had found a loophole. Jackson Park was more discreet about his companion and the ball python. Noodle rested comfortably in a specialized carrier hidden in his backpack where she had traveled many times before during field trips and family vacations. Priya Lakshmi carried a small sealed tank with practiced care, and inside her betta fish. Raja flared his brilliant red and blue fins at his own reflection. "He gets stressed when I'm gone," Priya had explained to the transportation officer, who eyed the tank with confusion, but ultimately shrugged and waved. Her through Sarah Chen rounded out the group, and though she had no pet of her own, she watched her younger companions with growing concern. "Did any of you actually read the guidelines?" Sarah asked, as they boarded the Concordance transport ship. "I read them," Maya said defensively while Mercury's carrier bumped against her hip. "They asked about sapient companions. And last time I checked, Mercury isn't sapient." "That's not technically what sapient means in this context," Sarah began, but Tyler cut her off. "Look, they've had 3 years to study Earth," Tyler said, while Zeus climbed aboard the ship with eager curiosity. "If they didn't want us bringing stuff from home, they should have been more specific." The transport ship was unlike anything the humans had ever seen, with walls that seemed to shift between solid and transparent and gravity that adjusted based on where you stood. Devrixian crew member, tall and mantis-like with forearms and compound eyes, greeted them in perfectly translated English. "Welcome, honored students from Earth," the Vrixian said with what might have been a smile, though it was hard to tell with mandibles. "Your quarters are prepared, and we will arrive at Celestial Scholarium in approximately 6 Earth hours." The humans settled into their assigned rooms, which were surprisingly spacious and clearly designed with human needs in mind: beds at the right height, atmosphere set to Earth normal. Even a small food synthesizer programmed with human-safe options Maya immediately set up. Mercury's travel litter box in the bathroom and filled his water bowl while the cat stretched and began exploring his new temporary home. Tyler's room was larger to accommodate his size, and Zeus immediately claimed the bed as his own, while Tyler laughed and didn't bother. Arguing, Jackson carefully regulated the temperature in his room before allowing Noodle to emerge from her carrier, and the snake immediately began investigating the strange new environment with her tongue. Priya placed Raj's tank on the desk where the light would hit it just right and spent 20 minutes ensuring the water temperature and pH levels were perfect. Surah unpacked her belongings in methodical order and tried not to think about what would happen when station security discovered what her fellow students had brought aboard. Meanwhile, in the Celestial Scholarium Administrative Center, Headmaster Kelth reviewed the final preparations for the human arrival. Skelth was Vrixian, like the transport crew member, but older and more decorated with silver bands around his upper arms that denoted his academic achievements. All safety. Protocols are in place? Kelth asked his assistant. A floating jellyfish-like Quilnere named Fozizia's headmaster, Fozus responded in her musical chiming voice.
Oh.
We have reinforced the dormitory walls to withstand the humans. Excessive strength, and installed emergency medical stations in case they accidentally injure other students with their bone density and the dietary restrictions. The cafeteria has been briefed extensively, Fozes assured him. No theobromine. Proper protein ratios. Nothing that would poison their unusual biology. Kelth nodded his antennae, twitching with residual anxiety. Earth had been classified as a Class 12 death world, meaning it was nearly uninhabitable by concordant standards, and its dominant species had evolved under conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within hours. Humans could breathe higher oxygen concentrations, survive temperature extremes, heal from injuries that would be fatal to others, and possessed a disturbing ability to keep functioning even when critically damaged. But the concordance prided itself on inclusivity, and if humanity wanted to join galactic society, they deserved the chance to prove themselves. The transport ship docked at Celestial Scholarium's receiving bay right on schedule, and the 5 human students gathered their belongings and prepared to disembark. Maya picked up Mercury's carrier, and the cat meowed softly in protest at being moved. Tyler clipped Zeus's leash on, even though the dog was well-trained enough not to need it. Jackson made sure Noodle was secure in his backpack with plenty of air holes. Priya double-checked that Raj's tank was sealed, and Sarah took a deep breath and prayed that her fellow humans hadn't just caused an interstellar incident before classes even started. The airlock opened, and they stepped into a cavernous docking bay filled with beings from dozens of different species, towering crystalline shea that reflected light like living prisms. Small, furry plenthic that looked almost like rabbits but with 6 legs, floating Quilnere that pulsed with bioluminescence, and many others the humans couldn't begin to identify. A reception committee waited for them, including Headmaster Kelth himself. Welcome, students of Earth, Kelth said, and his translator rendered his clicking speech into English.
Oh.
We are honored to host the first of your kind, and hope this exchange will be. That was when Mercury decided he had been in his carrier long enough and let out a loud, demanding yowl that echoed across the bay. Every alien in the immediate vicinity, Frozakelth's antennae snapped to attention. What he asked slowly was that sound. Maya smiled brightly and completely oblivious to the growing tension. Oh, that's just my cat. Do you want to meet him? She began, unlatching the carrier door, and that was when Headmaster Kelth realized with creeping horror that humanity's application had never asked about non-sapient companions. The humans had brought something from their death world, and it was about to get loose on his station. Mercury emerged from his carrier with the casual confidence of a creature that had never known a predator. In the 12-pound orange tabby stretched leisurely while Maya scratched behind his ears. Effect on the assembled aliens was immediate, and dramatic. A plenthic student near the front of the welcoming committee took one look at Mercury's forward-facing eyes and retractable claws and made a sound like a tea kettle reaching boiling point before fainting directly onto the floor. Too more plenthics scattered in opposite directions, while their emergency threat response kicked in. Predator. Someone shrieked in a language the translators rendered as pure panic. Deathworlder predator loose on station. Maya looked around in confusion, while Mercury sat down and began washing his face with one paw. What's wrong? Maya asked while reaching down to pick up her cat. He's completely friendly, I promise. Headmaster Kelth watched the small earth creature with growing horror in his compound. Eyes tracked every movement with the instinct of prey, recognizing danger. The creature had forward-facing binocular vision for tracking prey, retractable claws for gripping and tearing, sharp teeth visible when it yawned, and moved with the fluid grace of an ambush hunter that Kelth said carefully is a predatory species. Well, yes, Maya agreed, as if this were obvious. He's a cat, and cats are obligate carnivores, but he's also a sweetheart who wouldn't hurt anyone. Before Kelth could formulate a response to this insane statement, a new commotion erupted from the other side of the docking. Batila had let Zeus off his leash. The Golden Retriever bounded forward with the joyful enthusiasm of a dog meeting new friends and at 30 kilograms of pure muscle and energy. Zeus was significantly larger than many of the alien students, young Shay's student, crystalline and delicate. Turned at the sound of approaching footsteps and found herself face to face with Zeus's grinning face and lolling. Tung Zeus did what any friendly dog would do and jumped up to give her a proper greeting with his paws. On her shoulders, the Shay's crystalline structure couldn't handle the impact, and she shattered into 3 large pieces that fell to the floor with a musical chiming sound. Zeus no. Tyler shouted while running to catch his dog Bad Boy. We don't jump on people. The medical team rushed forward with specialized equipment to begin reassembling the Shay student who was conscious but clearly in shock. I am so sorry, Tyler said to the medical team, while Zeus sat at his feet looking guilty. He just gets excited around new people, and he's really friendly, I swear friendly. One of the medics asked in a high-pitched voice that suggested extreme stress that Creature just hospitalized a student. He didn't mean to, Tyler protested. He's a therapy dog, and back home he works with kids at the hospital. This information did not have the calming effect Tyler had hoped for. Concept of taking a Deathworld predator into a building full of injured, vulnerable people and calling it therapy seemed to break something in the medic's understanding of reality. Headmaster Kelth activated his emergency communicator with 2 of his 4 hands, while the other 2 gestured frantically. This is Headmaster Kelth, he said. Quickly activate crisis. Protocol 7, and I need security to the main docking bay immediately, and someone contact the Concordance and tell them we have a situation. What kind of situation, sir? The voice on the other end asked. The humans brought weapons, Kelth said, while watching Zeus try to lick Tyler's face, living biological weapons. While security teams scrambled to respond, Jackson Park had quietly moved to a corner of the docking bay and decided this might be a good time to keep Noodle hidden, but he hadn't counted on the curiosity of a Quillinari student who floated over to make introductions. Low Earth friend? The Quillinari chimed in friendly tones. I am. Lasheth and I study xenobiology, and your species is so fascinating with your endoskeleton. And bilateral symmetry? And is your bag moving? Jackson looked down at his backpack where Noodle had begun shifting around inside you. No. Jackson tried, but Lasheth was already floating lower to investigate. There is definitely something alive. In there, Lasheth chimed, with scientific excitement. Is it another human? Do some of you come in smaller sizes? Oh, this would revolutionize our understanding of. Noodle's head emerged from the slightly open zipper, and her tongue flicked out. To taste the airlift's bioluminescence, immediately shifted from curious blue to alarm red serpent. Lasheth shrieked, while floating backwards so fast she bumped into the ceiling. The human has a serpent, a constrictor species. It will crush us and consume us whole. She's only 4 feet long, Jackson protested, while carefully extracting Noodle from the backpack. And she eats rats, not people, and definitely not anyone as big as. But Lasheth had already triggered the emergency alert. And now klaxons were blaring throughout the docking. Base security personnel arrived in full protective gear, expecting to confront dangerous humans, and instead found something worse. The humans had brought their Deathworld ecosystem with them. Head of security? A heavily armored Kreeth named Vorn surveyed the scene with his 3 eyes, one human holding a small predator with retractable claws, another human restraining a larger pack-hunting predator, 3rd human now openly carrying a constrictor serpent weapons. Check. Vorn barked at his team. Scan all the humans and confiscate anything dangerous. They're the dangerous things, sir, one of the security officers responded. Priya Lakshmi had been watching this entire scene unfold with growing concern and had kept Raj's tank hidden in her bag, but now security was doing inspections and she knew it was only a matter of time when the security officer reached her. He gestured to her bag. Please present all items for inspection, he said in a mechanical voice. Priya sighed and carefully withdrew the small tank, and Raja, sensing an audience, immediately flared his fins and adopted his most aggressive display posture. The security officer stared at the small, colorful fish. What is that? A betta fish, Priya said quietly. His name is Raja. Is it dangerous? Not to people, Priya admitted. But to other fish, yes. And that's why he has to live alone. And he's very territorial. The security officer's translator struggled with this concept. You keep an aggressive territorial creature in your sleeping quarters. For what purpose? Because he's pretty, Priya said helplessly, and I like watching him swim. The officer backed away slowly and added this information to his report. Humans keep aggressive creatures as decoration within. 30 minutes, the entire celestial. Scholaron knew about the Crisis Emergency Concordance representatives were already en route. The station's xenobiology department was having heated arguments about classification and containment tand. In the medical bay, 3 Plenthic students were being treated for shock, while the Shea student was being carefully recrystallized. As Kelth stood in the center of the docking bay and watched the 5 human students clustered together with their creatures. Maya held Mercury and the cat. Tyler kept Zeus sitting obediently at his heel. Jackson had Noodle draped around his shoulders. Priya clutched Raja's tank protectively. Sarah stood with her arms crossed, looking like she wanted to say, "I told you so," but was too professional. Explain. Kelth said in a voice that carried across the suddenly quiet bay. Explain to me why you brought predators from a Class 12 Deathworld onto this station. Maya spoke first with genuine confusion in her voice. Headmaster Kelth, sir, I don't understand. Why everyone is so upset, and these are our pets, and we love them, and they're part of our family's pets. Kelth repeated the word slowly. You are telling me these predators are domesticated. Well, yes, Tyler chimed in. Dogs have been humanity's companions for like 40,000 years, and Zeus is a good boy who would never hurt anyone on purpose. He hospitalized someone within 5 minutes of arrival. Kelth's antennae were practically vibrating with stress. Jackson tried a different approach. Headmaster, with respect, I think there's been a cultural misunderstanding, and on Earth it's completely normal to share living space with animals, and we've been doing it for thousands of years, and these specific animals have been bred to be companions. Bred? Kelth latched onto this word. You have genetically modified predatory species. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds weird, Jackson admitted. While Noodle curled more comfortably around his neck, Priya stepped forward, and her voice was quiet but clear. Sir, we didn't bring weapons, and we brought family, and I know Raja is just a fish to you, but to me he's been my companion for 3 years, and he helps me focus when I study, and watching him swim calms my anxiety. You domesticate creatures and then form emotional bonds with them, Kelth said slowly, as if testing the logic even though they could harm you. All 5 humans nodded. Sarah finally spoke, and her voice carried the weight of someone who had studied xenolinguistics and understood how badly this situation could go. Headmaster Kelth, humanity's relationship with animals is fundamental to our culture, and we understand this might be different from other species, but we're not asking for special treatment. We're just asking for understanding. Kelth looked at the 5 young humans and their collection of Deathworld creatures. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was dangerous and unprecedented, but another part, the part that had spent decades in education and believed in the potential of all species, wondered if perhaps there was something to learn here. The creatures stay contained until the concordance makes a ruling, Kelth announced finally. The emergency concordance session convened within hours, and representatives from 47 member species gathered in a virtual chamber that shimmered with holographic projections. Ambassador Threll of the Vrixian Diplomatic Corps called the session to order with all 4 of his hands raised. We are here to address an unprecedented situation, Threll announced. The human students have brought biological organisms from their death world, and these organisms have already caused multiple injuries and widespread panic. A screen flickered to life, showing security footage from the docking bay, and the assembled representatives watched in horror as the events unfolded. Mercury stretching and displaying his predatory features, Zeus launching himself at the Shea student with devastating force, Noodle emerging from the backpack like a serpent from Nightmares, Raja flaring his fins in obvious aggressive display by the void, whispered a Plenthic representative while hiding behind their podium. They sleep with these creatures? Ambassador Korath of the Shea stood with their crystalline body, chiming softly.
Oh.
One of our students is still in medical recovery, and the impact force from the canine creature exceeded safety parameters by 300%, and we demand immediate removal of all Earth organisms. Seconded, called out multiple voices, but not everyone agreed. Representative Quinn, a culinary scientist, floated forward with their bioluminescence, pulsing in thoughtful yellow. With respect, colleagues, I believe we are missing crucial context, and humans have shared their cultural databases with us for 3 years, and their relationship with animals is well documented, but we never studied it seriously because it seemed insane. Shouted someone from the back. Exactly, Quinn agreed. By our standards, it is insane, but humans are not operating by our standards, and they are a death world. Species in their entire evolutionary history is different from ours. On the celestial Scholarium, Professor Thea had arrived at Headmaster Kel's office. Ethka was elderly for a Sether, and her scales had faded to a pale silver, but her eyes remained sharp and curious. She had spent the last 3 years obsessively studying Earth's transmissions and had become the Concordance's foremost expert on human culture. You wanted to see me, Headmaster? Kelth gestured at the screen showing the containment area where the 5 humans sat with their animals. I need you to explain this madness. Kelth said bluntly, why would any species voluntarily cohabitate with predators? Thea settled into a chair designed for her species and watched the screen with fascination. Maya was brushing Mercury while the cat purred loudly. Lur was playing Tugavor with Zeus, using a rope toy. Jackson had Noodle draped across his lap while reading from a datapad. Priya was feeding Raja small pellets and talking to the fish in soft tones because they are not cohabitating with predators. Headmaster, Thea said slowly, they are cohabitating with family. Kelth's antennae twitched in confusion. How can a predator be family? Thea pulled up files on her personal device. Let me tell you about dogs, she began. 40,000 Earth years ago, humans and wolves were both predatory species competing for the same resources, and somehow, instead of driving each other to extinction, they formed a partnership. She showed images of ancient cave paintings depicting humans and canines hunting together. The wolves that were less aggressive toward humans had better access to food from human camps, and the humans who accepted these wolves gained hunting partners and guards and protection, and over thousands of generations, this partnership became genetic. Kelth leaned forward. Yes, the A continued with growing excitement. Humans bred the wolves, selectively choosing the ones that were most loyal and most friendly and most useful, and they created hundreds of different variations, and some for hunting and some for guarding and some purely for companionship. She pulled up images of different dog breeds, from tiny Chihuahuas to massive Great Danes. These are all descended from wolves, but humans shaped them into forms that serve human needs, and more importantly, they shaped them to love humans. Kelth stared at the images. That is the most disturbing thing I have ever heard, is it? Thea challenged, or is it brilliant? Humans did not conquer their death world through individual strength alone, and they did it through cooperation, and not just with their own species, but with any species they could form bonds with. She showed footage of cats next, and explained how humans had allowed wild felines to live near their grain stores to hunt rodents, and how over time those cats became domesticated through similar processes. Then came images of horses and cattle and chickens, and even fish and decorative ponds. Humans domesticate everything, the AA said. If a creature can be befriended, they will befriend it, and if it cannot be befriended, they will study it until they understand how to befriend it, and this is their nature. But why? Kelth asked. Why would they want to befriend predators? Thal looked at him directly. Because, Headmaster, humans are lonely, and their planet tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways, and they survived by forming packs and tribes and communities, and somewhere deep in their psychology, they extended that pack mentality beyond their own species back in the containment area. The humans were dealing with their own crisis. Sarah had finally gotten access to the concordance feeds and was reading the transcripts of the emergency session. They are calling our pets biological weapons. Sarah told the others, some representatives want you all expelled, and the animals destroyed. What? Maya clutched Mercury closer. They can't do that. They can, and they might. Sarah said grimly, we are guests here, and we brought creatures that by their standards are dangerous. Tyler stood up, and Zeus immediately came to attention beside him. Then we need to show them that our pets aren't dangerous, and we need to demonstrate proper handling and care, and prove that we have complete control. How? Priya asked. While Raja swam in agitated circles, they won't even let us out of this room. Jackson had been quiet during this exchange, but now he spoke up. we don't need to leave the room, and we need to bring them here and let them see what our relationships with our pets actually look like up close. That's actually not a terrible idea, Sarah admitted. If we can get some of the more open-minded faculty to observe and they might understand better, she composed a message to Headmaster Kelth, requesting an educational demonstration. The response came back within minutes, and Professor Duska would attend, along with a security detail, when Thea entered the containment area. An hour later, she was accompanied by Headmaster Kelth and 5 armed guards. The humans stood in a line with their pets. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with us," Professor Maya began. "We understand there has been a misunderstanding, and we would like to explain our relationships with our companions." Thus's scales rippled with what humans would learn was her expression of interest. "Please do, and I am very curious." Maya sat down cross-legged on the floor, and Mercury immediately climbed into her lap. "This is Mercury, and I have had him since he was 8 weeks old and for 3 years. He has been my companion, and when I study late at night, he sits on my desk, and when I am sad, he purrs and makes me feel better, and when I sleep, he curls up next to me, and I trust him completely." She demonstrated how she could touch Mercury anywhere without aggression, and how he responded to his name, and how he played with toys. Instead of hunting, Tyler went next and put Zeus through a series of commands. And stay, and lie down, and roll over, and Zeus obeyed each one with tail wagging. Zeus is a therapy dog, and back on Earth he visits hospitals and nursing homes, and children who are scared or in pain feel better when they pet him, and yes, he is strong. But he is trained to be gentle, and what happened with the Chase student was an accident because he did not understand her physical structure. Jackson explained Noodle's care requirements and how ball pythons are actually quite docile despite their appearance, and how he had raised her from a hatchling, and how she recognized his scent and warmth. "She has never bitten anyone," Jackson said, while Noodle wrapped loosely around his arm. "And she only eats once a week, and she is not a threat to anything." Larger than a rat, Preya's explanation of Raja was perhaps the strangest to the assembled aliens. "I know he is just a fish," Preya admitted, "but watching him swim helps me think, and caring for him teaches me responsibility in maintaining his tank. Environment requires precision and chemistry knowledge, and he may be territorial with other fish, but he cannot hurt anyone in this room." When they finished, the room was silent. Stepped forward slowly, and her scales had shifted to a soft blue May. "I ask you all a question?" The humans nodded. "What do you feel when you look at your animals?" Maya answered. "First love and Mercury is family loyalty," Tyler added. "Zeus has never let me down," Priya said softly. Safety, Jackson contributed. "Noodle has been with me through some hard times." Thea turned to Headmaster Kelth. "Do you see, Headmaster? They are not keeping weapons, and they are keeping emotional support systems and family members, and the bonds are real." Kelth watched Zeus lean against Tyler's leg, and Tyler absently scratched the dog's ears. He watched Mercury nuzzle against Maya's hand. He watched Noodle's tongue flick out to taste Jackson's familiar scent. "I see," Kelth said slowly. "But seeing and understanding are different things. And how do we know these creatures will not harm other students?" The residential wing was chaos. Emergency lighting flickered red and debris floated in sections, where gravity had failed completely, while in others it pulled at dangerous angles. Headmaster Kelth arrived to find his emergency crews struggling with a collapsed doorway where the gravity regulators had created a crushing force that pinned a section of wall across the entrance. "How many trapped?" Kelth demanded. "At least 6 students, sir," the crew chief reported. "We are trying to lift the debris, but the unstable gravity makes it too. It's dangerous, and if we shift it wrong, the whole section could collapse further." That was when Zeus arrived. Golden Retriever bounded past the emergency crews and headed straight for the collapsed section. "Stop that creature," someone shouted, but Tyler was right behind him. "Zeus is a search and rescue dog," Tyler yelled while running. "Let him work." Zeus reached the debris and began sniffing frantically, and his tail wagged as he picked up scents. He barked 3 times in rapid succession. That means he found someone alive. Tyler translated while catching up. He is trained for this. Zeus began pawing at a small gap in the debris and whining. Tyler dropped to his knees and peered through the gap inside. He could see a young Plenthic student curled in a ball and trembling with fear. "Hey," Tyler called softly. "Can you hear me? We are going to get you out, okay?" The Plenthic looked up with wide, terrified eyes. The predator creature, they whispered it. Is right there. His name is Zeus, and he is here to help. Tyler promised. Can you move? Are you injured? Before the Plenthic could answer, the gravity in that section fluctuated, and debris shifted with a grinding sound. The gap began to close. Tyler made a split-second decision. He thrust his arm through the gap and grabbed the Plenthic student. Zeus, pull. Commanded. Zeus bit down on Tyler's jacket collar and pulled backward with all 30 kilograms of muscle, the combination of Deathworlder strength and canine pulling power. Yanked Tyler and the Plenthic student out. Just as the gap collapsed completely, the Plenthic landed on top of Tyler. Gasping, Zeus immediately began licking the small alien's face. In concern, the Plenthic froze, then tentatively reached up to touch Zeus's fur. Soft, they whispered in wonder. So soft. Maya had arrived with Mercury, and the cat had different skills. Cats had been bred for hunting in tight spaces, and Mercury's predatory instincts served a new purpose. Here he slipped through the debris using his flexible spine and acute senses. Maya followed his path, verbally calling out directions. Mercury found another gap. Maya shouted someone small enough could fit through and reach the students on the other side. A small maintenance drone was dispatched, but the controls failed in the unstable gravity. Can do it, volunteered Lesheth the Quilnari, who had initially discovered. Noodle, my species can compress our bodies. Maya looked at Mercury, who sat at the entrance to the gap and was meowing insistently. Mercury will guide you and follow his sounds, and he can sense where the safe spaces are. Lesheth floated into the gap and followed Mercury's meowing through the twisted brine. The other side, 3 students were trapped in a pocket of stable gravity. Mercury rubbed against each of them, purring, and they were too shocked to be afraid. Lesheth began guiding them back one at a time, with Mercury leading the way through the darkness. His eyes reflected the emergency lights like tiny beacons. Every student made it out safely. Jackson and Noodle had their own contribution in section where gravity had completely failed. Debris floated dangerously and needed to be moved to reach trapped students, but every time emergency crews tried to push something, it would spin unpredictably in 0G and cause more damage. Noodle can help, Jackson said. The crews looked at him skeptically. Snakes are experts at movement in 3 dimensions, and they use their whole body for navigation, and I can use her to demonstrate the debris paths. Jackson released Noodle in the 0G section. The ball python moved through the floating debris with fluid grace, and her body wrapped around one piece after another, showing the exact vectors and contact points. The crew used her movements as a guide and began carefully moving debris in the patterns. Noodle demonstrated remarkable breath. One of the engineers. The serpent understands 3-dimensional space better than our computers. Priya's contributions seemed the least likely. Fish could not search or pull or navigate, but in one trapped section, a Quilnari student was having a medical crisis. Stress and unstable gravity had disrupted their bioluminescent systems, and they were flickering between panic red and distress orange. I am going to die. The student chimed in discordant tones. I can feel my light fading. Priya squeezed through the rescue gap with Raja's tank held carefully. Priya said softly to the panicking student, watch him swim. Raja glided through his small tank, and his fins flowing and his colors brilliant. Quilnari student's attention fixed on the fish. He is so calm, the student chimed. How is he so calm when everything is chaos? Because his environment is stable, Priya explained, and because he trusts me to keep it that way, and you need to be like Raja and trust that we will stabilize your environment and just breathe and watch him swim. The Quilnaris' bioluminescence slowly shifted to calmer blue as they watched Raja's peaceful movements there. Vital signs stabilized enough for the medical team to safely extract them. For hours later, the crisis was overall. Students were accounted for, and no fatalities, and minimal serious injuries. The emergency crews sat exhausted while the 5 humans and their pets gathered in the command center. Headmaster Kelth stared at them with all 4 hands hanging limply at his sides. You were ordered to stay in containment, he said, but there was no anger in his voice, only exhaustion. Yes, Sir, Tyler acknowledged, and we are sorry for disobeying, but people needed help. Your creatures, Kelth continued, your pets as you call them, and they saved lives today. They did what they were bred to do, Maya said, while holding Mercury. Dogs search and rescue and cats hunt in tight spaces, And snakes understand spatial movement, and even Raja helped someone calm down. A Plenthic student approached slowly, was the one Zeus had. Pulled from the debris, may I? The student asked hesitantly, while looking at Zeus. May I pet the dog? Tyler smiled. Zeus sat, and his tail swept the floor in wide arcs. The Plenthic reached out with a trembling paw and touched Zeus's head. Zeus leaned into the touch and made a soft, happy sound. The Plenthic's eyes widened. He is warm, and he is so warm and so soft, and he likes being touched. He loves it, Tyler. Confirmed it is how we show affection. More students began to approach the ones who had been rescued, the ones who had seen the pet's work in young Shay, who had watched Mercury navigate the debris, Sether, who had observed Noodle's graceful movement, even some who had not been directly involved, but had heard the stories. I would like to understand, announced Professor Thea, who had been observing everything. With your permission, I would like to study this bond between humans and animals, and I believe the Concordance needs to see what I saw today. What did you see, Professor? Asked. Sarathka's scales rippled through several colors before settling on thoughtful purple. I saw what makes humans truly unique, she said. Not your strength or your endurance or your Deathworld adaptations, but your ability to create loyalty from predators and to form bonds across species, and to extend your concept of pack and tribe and family to include creatures that, by all logic, should be your enemies. She turned to address Headmaster Kelth and the growing crowd of students and faculty. For millions of years, most species in this galaxy have viewed animals as either resources or threats, and we farm them or we avoid them, but we never befriend them. And humans look at a wolf and see a future companion, and they look at a predatory cat and see a friend, and they take creatures bred for aggression like this fish and find peace in their beauty. More students were gathering now. Word had spread through the station about what happened, about the dog who pulled students from debris, about the cat who guided rescuers through darkness, about the snake who taught spatial navigation, about the fish who calmed a medical crisis. I move that we allow the human students to keep their companions, Thea announced, and furthermore, I propose a cultural exchange program where interested students can learn about Earth's domestication practices. Seconded, called out Lesheth. I wish to study this human-animal bond. Thirded, said the Plenthic student who was still petting Zeus' headmaster. Kelth looked around at his students, sat his faculty, at the 5 humans who had disobeyed orders to run toward danger, the creatures who had helped save lives. The Concordance will need to approve this formally, Kelth said, but provisionally I am lifting the containment order, and the humans and their pets may remain under supervised conditions until a final ruling is made. Cheers erupted from the assembled students. Maya hugged Mercury. Tyler scratched Zeus behind the ears. Jackson let Noodle wrap around his shoulders. Priya smiled down at Rajasara, just looked relieved. But Professor Thea had one more question. She approached Tyler and gestured at Zeus. You said your dog is bred for loyalty and for love, and that humans shaped wolves into this form over thousands of generations. And tell me, and do you ever fear that you have taken something wild and broken it? Tyler considered this seriously while Zeus leaned against his leg. I think, Tyler said slowly. 6 months had passed since the infamous incident that became known across the galaxy as the Pet Crisis. The celestial scholarium had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Maya walked through the main corridor with Mercury trotting beside her, and students no longer scattered at the sight of the orange tabby cat. Instead, several called out, "Greetings, good morning, Mercury," chimed Aquilnery. Student Mercury meowed in response and rubbed against a passing Plenthic's leg. The Plenthic laughed and scratched behind his ears before continuing to class. I still cannot believe this is normal now. Maya's roommate Kessa, was a young Phyrexian who had volunteered to share quarters with Maya specifically to overcome her species' prey instincts. 6 months ago, I would have fled from your cat, and now I help you feed him character growth, Maya teased, while opening the door to Professor Thea's Synonthropology class. The classroom had changed to what was once a traditional lecture hall. Now included several animal interaction stations, where students could observe and learn about Earth's domesticated species. Tyler sat in the back with Zeus, lying under his desk, the golden retriever, had become something of a campus mascot, and students would often seek him out during stressful exam periods. His presence had a calming effect, and his tail-wagging enthusiasm was apparently universal in its appeal. Professor Thea entered with her scales displaying pleased green. "Good morning, class, and today we continue our study of human domestication practices with a focus on selective breeding." She pulled up holographic displays showing the diversity of dog breeds. "Remember when we first learned that all these variations came from wolves?" The shock in this classroom was palpable. Several students chittered or chimed in agreement. But now we understand that humans did not simply tame wolves, and they partnered with them, and shaped them, and created living tools and companions. And friends, a Sether student raised one claw. "Professor, I have been researching, and humans have domesticated over 40 different species, and why so many?" Thea gestured to Tyler. "Would you like to answer that, Tyler?" Tyler stood with Zeus immediately, coming to attention beside him. "Because we could," Tyler said simply. "Humans have always been curious, and we see potential everywhere, and if an animal could be useful, or friendly, or beautiful, we wanted to bring it into our lives, and sometimes it was for work like dogs helping us hunt or cats protecting our grain, and sometimes it was just because we liked having them around. But the resources required pressed, the see their student feeding them and caring for them, and surely this is inefficient." "Maybe," Tyler agreed, "but efficiency is not the only measure of value and Zeus costs me time and money and energy, and he gives me loyalty and companionship and unconditional love, and that is worth more than efficiency." Zeus barked once, as if agreeing then. Class had grown accustomed to occasional animal interruptions. In the corner Jackson sat with Noodle in her specialized temperature controlled habitat. Several students had gathered around the tank to watch her. "She is preparing to shed, Jackson," explained C. "How her scales are getting cloudy, and that means she will be extra sensitive, so we have to be gentle with her." Young Quilnari reached out to touch the tank glass. "May I observe the shedding process for my biology report?"
"Oh, sure, Nige."
Sure, Jackson agreed. "It should happen in the next day or two, and I can record it for you." This casual cooperation between species would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. But Thea's formal research program had changed perspectives. She had spent months documenting the human-animal bond, and her findings were being presented to the Concordance Council. Data was irrefutable. Students who participated in the animal interaction program showed reduced stress cross-species. Cooperation had increased, even productivity. In-group projects had improved, but more than data, the AI had collected stories like the Plenthic student who had overcome generations of prey species' instinct to befriend, Zeus, and who now volunteered at the campus animal care center, or the Shea student, who had been injured in Zeus's initial greeting, and who now studied Earth's veterinary medicine practices with plans to become the first non-human animal Dr. War, the dozens of students who found that watching Maya's cat or Priya's fish helped them focus and study and think. The research had surprised even Thronimals. It seemed provided something the galaxy had been missing. Connection to something beyond logic and efficiency and survival. They provided comfort during lunch. The 5 human students gathered in their usual spot in the cafeterias lay under the table. Mercury was curled up in Maya's lap. Noodle rested in her portable carrier beside Jackson. Raj's tank sat on the table where Priya could monitor him. Sarah was reading the latest concordance reports on her datapad. They are actually going to approve it. Sarah announced with barely contained excitement the Permanent Animal Companion Program. And they are going to allow students from any species to bring approved animals from their homeworlds. Really? Tyler nearly knocked over his drink. The council voted in favor. 38-9, Sarah confirmed. With abstentions from the remaining delegates, and they want to use our program as a model. Maya looked up from where she was scratching Mercury. Does this mean other species are going to start domesticating animals? Some already are, Sarah said of Verxian. The colony has apparently started a pilot program with a small herbivore species from their homeworld. And they are calling it companionship studies, Jackson laughed. We accidentally revolutionized galactic culture by bringing our pets to school, not accidentally, corrected a familiar voice. Professor Thea approached their table with her scales displaying proud gold. You did it by being exactly who you are, and you showed the galaxy something it needed to see. She settled into a chair, and several students nearby turned to Lysenthka, become quite popular, and her lectures were always full. I have been asked to present my final research findings to the full Concordance Assembly next week, HAA announced, and I would like you 5 to accompany me with your animals, and if you are willing, of course. They all agreed. What will you tell them? Priya Askithka was quiet for a moment, and her scales cycling through thoughtful colors. I will tell them that for millions of years, we have built our civilizations on a foundation of logic and efficiency and mutual benefit between sapient species. And this is good and necessary, but also we have been missing something. She gestured at Mercury sleeping peacefully in Maya's lap. Seuss with his head resting on Tyler's foot, at Noodle coiled contentedly in her carrier, at Raja swimming his endless patterns. We have been missing the bonds that cannot be quantified, and the love that serves no logical purpose, and the companionship that exists simply because it brings joy. Plenthic's student, who had been listening, spoke up shyly. Professor, I have been thinking about getting a companion animal, but I do not know if my species can overcome our instincts. 6 months ago I would have said the same. Thea admitted, but I have seen Plenthic students befriend dogs, and Shay's students handle snakes, and Quilnerai students care for fish, and if they can do it, anyone can, and it simply requires willingness to try and trust. In proper education, Maya added, understanding animal behavior and body language and needs is crucial, which is why, Theha continued, the Concordance is funding a new department here at Celestial Scholarium and the Department of Interspecies Companion Studies, and I have been asked to chair it. Excited murmurs spread through the cafeteria. We will teach animal care and behavior and training and ethics of domestication, TA explained, and we will research which species from different homeworlds might be suitable for companionship, and we will do it right, and we will do it safely. Talay raised his drink too. Professor Thea, and the craziest research project in galactic history? Too, Thea. The others chorused all around them. Students from dozens of species joined in the celebration later. That evening Maya found herself in the station's observation. Deckett had become a favorite spot, and the view of stars and nebulae was breathtaking. Mercury sat on the railing beside her, and his tail swishing as he watched the cosmic display floated up beside them. The Vrixian had grown comfortable enough to voluntarily spend time with the cat. I have been approved, Kessa announced quietly. Approved? Maya asked to bring a companion from my homeworld when I return for summer break, and it is a small avian creature and very gentle, and my parents think I have lost my mind. Maya laughed. My parents thought the same when I insisted on bringing Mercury here, but look how it turned out. Kessa reached out hesitantly and touched Mercury's fur. Cat leaned into her touch, purring. I never thought I could do this, Kessa whispered. Touch a predator and feel safe and feel happy. That is what friends do, Maya said. They help us overcome our fears. Is that what Mercury is to you? A friend? Maya considered this. He is more than a friend, and he is family, and he depends on me, and I depend on him, and we take care of each other. Even though you are different species, especially because we are different species, Maya corrected. The bond is not weaker because we are different, and it is stronger. And we chose each other despite everything that should keep us apart. Kessa's antennae twitched in a way Maya had learned meant deep thought. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs to learn, and that bonds can transcend difference, and that love is not limited by biology or evolution or logic. Now, you sound like Professor Thea, Maya teased, but Kessa was right.